Hello, welcome. The presentation is going to be on international norms and the theory of identity fusion. The context is the Moldovan Transnistrian negotiations. Just for reference, for those of you who might not be exactly familiar where Moldova is, it's located in Europe, near the Black Sea, in between Romania and Ukraine. Okay, for this dissertation research, I have three hypotheses. Enclave bias exists in Moldova as the concept is presented by Messi et al. It correlates geographically with support for the recently proposed legislation that aims at restricting external funding for civil society organizations within Moldova. This issue of intolerance for external funding this issue of intolerance for external support stemming from enclave bias can be addressed through the 5+2 negotiation format currently being used to manage other economic, social, and security concerns between Transnistria and Moldova. So this is a multidisciplinary research project kind of under the umbrella of security studies. The different disciplines of interest are psychology, economics, civil society management, legal studies, and conflict and dispute resolution as it relates to security studies. So to begin with, I'm going to address the field of psychology. Enclave bias, the idea of it was originated by Messi et al. In a Yugoslavian study where they determined prior to the breakout of the conflict that certain regions had certain degrees of intolerance and tension due to factors such as how often they read the news, if they were in mixed marriages, mixed ethnic marriages, whether they engaged, if they volunteered in the community. So that's kind of one study that's going to be applied. But additionally, Gordon Allport's theory of intergroup contact, he lists several factors that can help reduce tensions between different groups. These include equal status, support from authority, that they're working towards common goals, and they're working in this cooperation independently. So they are engaged in the process independently, not being coerced, so to speak. So regarding psychology within the negotiation format, Pruitt et al. Proposed what's called expanding the pie. This is when all ideas out of the box, as far-fetched as you can think of, are brought and put onto the table for everyone to consider, and hopefully this generates new ideas for cooperation and routes forward to reduce tensions. Lastly, within the field of psychology, there's the theory of identity fusion, which is presented by Swan et al. He proposes 4 principles of the nature of identity fusion. So first of all, there's the agent personal self principle. This is kind of when the agency of the individual matches that of the group, so they are working towards each other, so the group kind of becomes, their agency is moving together. Secondly, there's the identity synergy principle. This is when their identity actually becomes fused. Then the relational ties principle. This is when people within the group are actually more attracted to each other through their prototypeness. So if you're appealing to an authority as suggested, or that is required by Allport's theory, so they have that common identity, this actually draws them together, which will be addressed further later. Then there's the irrevocability principle, which is group cohesion. When you actually, under that identity, the group has a sense of cohesion and is able to pursue its collective goals more effectively. Moving on to the field of economics. So within Moldova, there are a couple of enclaves or breakaway regions, and this can actually hinder economic growth. It's called fractionalized economy, when there's a lack of economic interaction or development. Transnistria does have some unique economic characteristics, and additionally, over the years, Russia has supported it in oil with low-priced oils and some other things. But sometimes in these fractionalized economies, money is spent on fixing that, and sometimes it's not able to fix it, so this is money wasted, and it just maintains the status rather than actually moving forward, not addressing the underlying issues. And so that is one aspect, and so what that also sometimes will create is economic dependence on sometimes unstable trade partners, or if you have trade partners who have sanctions or something, this can cause complications. So moving forward from there, we're going to address like the second hypothesis, the civil society, the legislation aimed at limiting civil society funding from international funders. So Frumkin, an authority on civil society and political engagement, says that there's evidence that civil society participation and activity is needed for a healthy democracy. So that's one thing that's going to be addressed. Moldova's reliance on international funding in a 2014 survey, 83% of the civil society organizations that were surveyed indicated they had a high dependency on foreign giving. So in limiting that source of income, civil societies will definitely be hindered. Potential problems with the civil society. So there are some things that have concern with civil societies. With money laundering, due to their unique financial processes, they can be susceptible to money laundering, and that can actually has in some instances been related to terrorism. The Hungarian president actually Hungary has a similar law in place right now, and he's actually indicated that as being one reason trying to prevent terrorism, but that's not always the issue with the case. So moving on to legal studies, the kind of the legal aspects of this situation here regarding this proposed legislation. Article 11.1-2 of the European Convention, to which Moldova is a party to, it protects a nation's or entities' right to freedom of association. And so when civil society organizations seek international funding, they're doing this under this protection of association with whomever they would like. So in limiting their ability to access those funds, their right is being potentially infringed upon. So from the proposed legislation, Article 26, 27, and 28, basically those articles stipulate that if the civil society organization is political, they cannot allow donors to receive the 2% tax break. This actually was only implemented last year, and these are for citizens. So they just came out with a new report that which will be incorporated into this study. Other nations with similar laws of this are Russia, Hungary, Azerbaijan, plus others. So, like I mentioned before, money laundering can be a concern. In 2014, 2.5 times Moldova's annual GDP was laundered in one day. This has been curbed, but that was a concern at that time. So that's one concern. So bringing this all under conflict and dispute resolution and triangulating the studies. So security studies and conflict resolution studies have been kind of cooperating with each other since after World War II. In World War II, like the grand scale of conflict, we kind of had military intelligence reach out to academia to kind of think about some of these big issues together. So the solution is the 5.2 negotiation format. So under the optimal situation provided by Allport and his 4 criteria, and then we have integrating solutions, expanding the pie, considering all the options, and then understanding legal identity fusion and how you can appeal to a common authority and use that to bring a collective together, to complete a specific goal, and then an important aspect of this is international norms and principles that are established in the OSC negotiation format between the parties. There has been past challenges, and talks have broken down, but there have been recent developments that hopefully will continue. Thank you.